Hello, everyone. I'm not sure you can hear me. Anyone can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have two computers and none work, and they both have the same problem. So 2Mac, impossible to share my screen. And so I'm going to do a short class today. I'm really sorry. This is kind of interesting. Why does it have to happen today? I mean, it never happens when you want it, I suppose. But so I was last week on discussing the issue of the price mix. And so I was left talking about the byproduct and product bundling. That's where I left you. I was talking about the fact that these prices have to be adjusted, and there's several pricing strategy. The most common pricing strategy is scheming. And then scheming, the idea behind this is that you're going to have a price that is as high as possible. And then penetration pricing is you will have a price as low as possible for different objectives for each one of these. The lowest price will gain you market share. The highest price will get you to make more profit. The other pricing strategies, which are captive pricing, trying to sell the product at the lowest price as possible, then making money from the options that you will sell the product with. Then you would have other strategies such as bundling and byproduct, and that's where I left it with. So as a quick recap on this, because I mentioned it in class, byproduct pricing is when you're trying to make money on things that you usually throw away, but they have some value for someone. And I was giving the example of someone making furniture and then using the sawdust from the furniture in order to sell that sawdust to a zoo, for example. And the product bundling, which is very important, where the objective is to try to maybe sell a new product. So what you do is you bundle your new product with existing products. So maybe you're selling a perfume that people like, and what you do is you throw a smaller version than the normal size, new perfume, and so people get to experience the new perfume and they won't pay as much. They're not going to pay anything. This is not a sample product. It's a product that they have to pay, but they will pay much less than if they were to buy it independently. And so the product bundling, the idea is that the consumer wants to save by buying more, so they buy the bundle, but at the same time that allows you, the producer, to sell more product. And so you have the ability to reduce your inventory, you have the ability to increase your market share, you have the ability to introduce new products, and that's the whole idea of the product bundling strategy. Then I wanted to talk about the fact that you offer also discounts in terms of pricing, but to the consumer, depending on when they buy. So they buy a large volume, so there's a cash discount for a volume discount. Maybe they buy in a season where there's less people, or maybe a day where there's less people. So there's less people going to the cinema on Tuesday. And so therefore you are on Tuesday giving two tickets for the price of one. Maybe you give them a special price if there's a trade-in. Maybe you give them a promotional allowances, which is that you allow them to save some money for buying it for a specific period of time. Maybe you sell a product which has some functional value. Means, you know, you sell them a bottle of Coke, but the bottle of Coke can be reused for decoration or for some other purpose. Maybe it's an aluminum container that has the shape of a bottle, and then you can keep using it for your own use for other type of beverages. So all of these offer advantages. So you have customer allowances, pricing allowances, but you also have business allowances where you give discounts to businesses buying your product by buying more or at a certain time or for all of these type of reasons. You also have different pricing based on where do they buy, the location where they buy the product. So maybe the location is, it's in the airport. So there you'll have a higher price than if they were to buy in a vending machine. So the vending machine is lower, the airport is more. Maybe depending on who you are as well. So maybe there will be a student discount, or maybe a senior discount, or maybe a frequent user VIP member type of discount. So the other promotional pricing are loss leader. So what is a loss leader? Anyone knows what is actually a loss leader? Anyone has heard of what is a loss leader? When they talk about loss leaders. First, loss leaders are not always allowed. It's a pricing promotion method which is not, which is regulated. And for many states in America, it's not legal to sell loss leader. The idea of loss leader is that you sell a product that is less than the cost. And a retailer may decide to do a loss leader in order to attract more customers because of this exceptional price for a specific product. So here comes spring, and for spring, there will be a store offering very low prices for a specific model of outdoor furniture, for example. So this outdoor furniture, instead of being $500, it's $299. And everybody can see $299. That seems to be an amazing deal beyond what is reasonable. And that is the reason, because of being a loss leader, which is this one product that is heavily advertised for people to see and then people to want. So they go to that store hoping to buy this super deal. But when they go to the store, there's several things that can happen. One is they get that deal, but they end up buying other things that they didn't plan to buy. So then that's the idea of getting the customers inside. The other thing is that the deal may be sold. So that's why they have to state something such as a limited number available, you know, first come, first serve. That way people don't get too upset because they missed the good deal. So that's the loss leader is a tool. It's like a promotional tool that you have to be very careful, that businesses have to be careful using, because it's highly regulated on how you're doing it. Then there's a pricing for a special event. Then there's a cash rebates. Then there's special interest rate for buying a product. Then they increase the warranty. Maybe they give you extra product during a short period of time. All of these are different pricing discount rates that they may apply. When you sell a product and you talk about pricing, you have to also think about the pricing, the psychology of pricing. So the use of 0.99 is very common in psychology pricing. If you're selling something $15, people have an idea of what's $15. But if you're selling it $14.99, you're taking advantage of the fact that they hear $14 for the most part. They don't see that the $99 by 1 cent difference is essentially equal to $15. The perception of the discount is much greater. So there is many benefits in offering products that are 99, and you have to sort of pay attention of where you put the 99. Should it be $4.99? Should it be $6.99? You know, should it be so I run into this a lot because, for example, the best price would be $30, but then $30 it sort of sounds like a lot. So maybe I sell it $29.99. But the problem is $29.99. Yes, there are some people that think it's $29 and not $30, but they still see it at $29, and that's still a lot of money. So then you decide, should it be $28.99, $27.99, $26.99? And this is where you have to do some study to see the price, how it's perceived, and the value of the product, how it's perceived, and constantly evaluate people's perception of pricing. If you are using too many price changes, you start devaluating the perception of the value of your products. So you have to be careful not to make changes of prices too often. You don't want people, your customers, to become fan of your discounts and fan of your promotions. You want them to become fans of your product, fans of the benefits, fans of the solution and the problem that you're solving, not fans of those discounts, because otherwise they won't buy unless there's a discount. They're going to be waiting for the discounts, searching for the discounts, and they won't buy unless there's a discount. If you keep doing this, that will damage your brand. And it can be something that you use for a short period of time, but you want to be careful. So not a permanent strategy, and it should be very much used also in connection with your competitors. What do your competitors do? So if your competitors are doing a discount, should you do one? And maybe that's the time to do one. How much should you do? Should you do the same as your competitors, a little bit more than your competitors, or less than your competitors? All of these are very important decisions that you need to take. So now I want to talk about distribution. And distribution is a very important matter, because you could have the best product, but it could be that this, even though you have the best product, it does not sell because it's not successful through the distribution. So the big word that you need to associate with distribution is the word intermediary. So this is the third P that I want to cover, the P of distribution. The P of distribution. How could the P of distribution, what's the connection? It's because normally it's the P of place. So you have product, price, and now we're going to look at place, which is essentially distribution. And as I mentioned earlier in this class, you can't call it D, because it'll be P, P, D, P, and nobody will remember the 4 P's. So for the convenience, they call it place, which is the location and the distribution and the logistics. So the other word beside place, which is sort of useful for the sake of talking about the 4 P's, the other word is the word of intermediary. When you are working in distribution, you're working with intermediaries. So it is very important to understand this concept of intermediaries. Why would you want to have intermediaries? You want to have intermediaries because distribution is a job in itself. If you're a manufacturer or a brand owner, most of the time you're really good at making the product, and you're very good at serving the brand. But then getting it to the consumer is something that is very different. So this concept of intermediaries is very important, and it has been challenged by the internet. So for the past 30 years, intermediation or disintermediation has been very much the trend, which means trying to reduce the number of intermediaries to the point that you have no more intermediaries. So before I keep on going, I want to make a connection between this and the presentation that we had during the lunchtime for the Wells Fargo Center. And first, I want to thank you for many of you coming to the presentation today. I hope you had a good time. I was able to meet with students after this presentation. So I met with a good number of students for talking about their papers, and there was a number of them that said that they found it very exciting. So I hope you also found it exciting yourself. And any comments? Anyone learned something interesting today? Okay, so if you were there, you saw the first presenter, Christina, and Christina had her own farm that she inherited from her dad, who inherited from his father, and so she was in charge of this farm, and she had to sell a product, but she was having difficulty selling the product, or she has some difficulty selling the product for the reason that it's a product that is essentially very segmented by pricing, which means that she produces pomelos, which is like a huge grapefruit, if you want, that has the shape of a pear. So it's the shape of a pear, but it's 5 times bigger than the biggest grapefruit. It's almost like a watermelon size type of pear. And so she has a real amazing dilemma, which is that if she sells this product to Asians, it's worth a lot, and they want a lot of these, and they really love this product. But if she wants to sell it to anyone else, it's it's not worth that much money. So the other people, they wouldn't pay, you know, even $5 for this product, versus the Asian will pay $20 for just one of those pomelos. But she's also facing the situation that they will pay $20 if the pomelos have actually the leaves, because the Asian not only like to eat the pomelos, but they also like to display the pomelos because it has a cultural meaning that means prosperity and so forth. So that's super important for those Asians. Now, the dilemma, what's the price? Well, it's worth $3 for a non-Asian, $10 for an Asian without the leaves, and $20 for an Asian with the leaves. Now, it depends. Is it a branded product? Well, that may change the price, because then there's the impact of the brand. Is it popular product? Is it a highly rated product? Did the product want some ratings and it's popular and it's referenced in other places? So the job of the producer is to produce it, to worry about the germs and the pests and the yields and the healthiness and the size of the pomelo. And very often for those people, and that was the case of Christina, it is very difficult to think about the distribution, because it's such a different jobs. How am I going to distribute those pomelos to Asians? Where are the Asians? What do the Asians want? How do they buy? You know, who are the intermediaries that are going to help me get to the Asians? So when you came today, essentially that was the biggest dilemma of Christina, is finding the intermediaries. And this is why she was looking for a partner, someone that would get a chunk of the profits of the sales that these partners will make in selling the product, by having a direct connection and relationship with intermediaries that deals directly with Asian consumers. And in particular, she was focused on casinos, trying to sell it to the casinos. She has about 50 different casinos where she lives, at about 50 miles around where she lives. And so those casinos are mostly owned by Indian Americans, native Indian Americans. And but yet a good amount of the consumers that come to those casinos are Asians, and in particular, the high rollers are Asians. So one would imagine that the owners of these casinos, the native Indians, who probably don't care much for the pomelos, would want to care for something that is very appealing to the Asians. And so she was looking for someone who had connection and knowledge about how to speak to the casinos and the Native American Indian casinos and so forth. So you could have the best pomelo, and like she mentioned in the presentation, you could have the only pomelo producer in America, and they are really good, and the Asian people, when they eat them, they absolutely love them. So there's no issue with the product. And you have no competition, because nobody really imports those pomelos, because they're heavy and they come from even Asia and so forth. And you could still be struggling because of the single element of place, distribution. And so distribution can be very expensive. Distribution is putting it into people's eyes, in front of people's eyes. And so this is why, if you're looking at the 50 richest people in the world, you will see that a lot of this wealth comes from distribution, such as Amazon and so forth, because that's a very high profit business, and it takes some investment at the beginning to control the location, you know. So distribution is about sharing the cost of getting the product from the producer to the consumers by using intermediaries. So the intermediaries have the distribution has multiple roles. One role is to inform. So they inform the producer about what are the elements that are required to sell the product. Maybe they inform in terms of the fact that there needs to be some specific packaging and labeling. Maybe they also take care of the promotion. Oftentimes they will give discounts to the consumers. They're going to be a point of contact. The consumer may need some information and look for information and need to speak to someone, so they can speak to the distribution network versus speaking directly to the producer. In fact, Christina, using again Christina as the entrepreneur that we saw today for a company called Rancho Soledad de Luz, Christina does not want anyone to come to her farm. And the reason that she doesn't want anyone to come to her farm is number one reason is the protection of the germs. Apparently, there are a lot of germs that are being spread by people coming to farms. They spread it because they've touched something. They spread it because it's on their shoe. So that's a big issue, protecting each other from the germs. That's number one. The other reason is also you need to have a special welcoming situation for having guests come to your farm, where you need a parking, you need all kinds of compliances. You also need some kind of handicap certification, and then you also need to pay more insurance and so forth. So there's all kinds of issues where she doesn't want to be so much contacted by the consumers and rather have the distributors be in charge of that. Then there's an element called matching. So matching is very important for distributors. The job of a distributor is to make the best connection between the producer and the consumers. So they sell, the distributor, many different kinds of products, let's say in small quantity. I mean, some of them, if you're looking at Amazon or Walmart or Costco, they're selling a large quantity of different products in large quantities, but that's the minority of the distributors. Most of the distributors sells a large variety of products in small quantities. And the job of a producer is to, for the most part, again, to produce a large quantities of a minimum different type of product. So if you think about, for example, Christina, she sells, I think, two different fruits on her farm, the pomelos being the biggest one that she sells, but she sells, you know, tens of thousands of those fruits, versus a store that would be distributing fruits won't have tens of thousands of pomelos. They may have just 70, 80 pomelos, but that's not only pomelos they will have, is they will have, you know, hundreds of different categories of fruits and vegetables. So you see the picture. So therefore, what's important with the distributor is to know the producers and what they sell, to know their market and what the market wants, and to match the producer and the market and be the intermediary that is the best one at creating this connection and this logistics. So that's called matching. Negotiation is when you sell a product and what you try to do is you are sort of taking some financial responsibility. So that you're buying from the producer, and at the same time you're storing from the producer, but at the same time you thinking also of the price you're going to sell it to the business buyer or the consumer buyers that you're going to sell the product. And therefore there's an element of negotiation that they have to do, the distributor, and that you don't have to do. You had to negotiate with them for the volume of their purchase, but then you don't have to further negotiate with the buyer. So sometimes I run into these problems. How so? Well, I'm a producer of cognac, and sometimes what I do, which is the normal thing that is expected, is I go see certain retailers. So I don't sell to retailers. What I do is I sell from France one container. So it's like we're talking 7,000 bottles at once to one person that buys 7,000 bottles at once. And this one person buying 7,000 is going to match, so break these 7,000 bottles to different states and different store within the states. And so it's a trickle down, which is a large volume that gets broken down into 10 states and then 10 states. So then these, if they buy 7,000 bottles and it's 10 states, it's a 700 bottles that go in 10 states and 700 bottles, knowing that each store is going to take 100 bottles, then it's only 7 stores that are going to get my product. So it's limited, even though you're thinking at the beginning it's 7,000 bottles. But then if I'm invited by my distributor, oftentimes what the distributor wants is me to train their salesperson. So what they want is me to go to talk to a retailer in front of their salespeople, and their salespeople therefore can hear me talk about my products. And then that's an experience that they get directly from the owner and producer, and you can say main salesperson, and then they try to replicate this every time they meet other retailers. So it's a thing that you do in order to promote your product, as you take care of it yourself by traveling around and doing this. However, sometimes I get into a situation where the retailer says, oh, you must be very rich. Oh, you must have a lot of money. Oh, you must be so powerful. Hey, I know you sell containers that's 7,000 bottles. You know, I only buy 50 bottles, 70 bottles, 100 bottles. Can you help me with the price? Can you help me with the price? Can you give me a discount? I can't give a discount at this time because I gave the discount to the person who bought the 7,000 bottles. I can't give another discount to the person who's just buying 50 bottles at the end in their retail store. The retailer don't even understand that. They just, or they play dumb, because what happens is when I sell it from France, let's say I sell it $10, and when they are buying it in America as a retailer from the wholesaler, they are buying it $50. So when they want a discount, they say, oh, I'm buying it $50. Can you give me a discount and give it to me for $45? But the problem is if there's a $5 discrepancy, it doesn't make sense to me because I sold it 10. I certainly didn't make $5 when I sold it for 10. I made maybe $2. So which means that for these retailers, if I had to give them a discount, I would actually lose profit and even lose more than profit. I would lose even cost for selling it to this person, versus the distributor, when it's the distributor is selling it $50 to that retailers down the road as an intermediary, that that distributors is probably selling it something like $35 and making $15. So for them to sell it $45, $5 less, they're still making 10. They're just making a lower profit margin, but they're still making margin. So when the retailers see me in the premise, in the location, in their store, they think that $5 is nothing for me, but it is, because it takes away my profit. But then you could say, yes, but you made, let's say, $2 multiplied by 7 bottles, and this person is going to take 100 bottles at where you lose 5, so you're going to lose $500. What's $500 when you made $14,000? You can give it to this person. I guess if you look at it like this, you could think that you're doing this, but how many retailers can you do this? And it's just bad to act as if you have the price of the intermediary when you don't have. Every intermediary has a percentage of margin, which is on a different number. And as you have more and more intermediaries, the price of what you're selling becomes more expensive. And that's the other piece that you need to understand, is the less intermediary you have, the lower your price stays, and therefore the more competitive you become against your competitors. So what are your competitors trying to do? Make the best product, make people believe it's the best product, and keep it as low price as possible. But if you have too many intermediaries, you may have a better connection and network to go to the consumers, but because you have so many people in between, your price ends up being a lot because you have to feed all of these people in between. They all have to take their margin, and at the end, your price becomes too expensive. Even though everyone is pushing for it, you are not able to get there. So the dilemma is, how many intermediaries are too many intermediaries, and therefore increasing the final price to the customers? And how many is too few? So if you sell direct, it's great because you don't have to worry about intermediaries, you're selling yourself. But when you sell direct, you have to be very careful not to sell it the price that you would be selling it if you're selling it wholesale. So if, for example, your product, you know, I was just mentioning it's $50 to the retailer, and then it ends up being $50 multiplied by 50%. So it's $75 that they're going to sell it. And therefore they sell it $75, and you're selling it direct to the consumers, but normally it costs you 10. You're sort of inclined to say, hey, 10, I make some money, but I sell units instead of selling by 7,000 at once. So I'm going to sell it for 15. And that's a huge margin, because now I don't make $2 anymore. I'm making $7. The problem is if you sell it 15, true, you're making more money, True, it's an amazing, incredible deal for the customer at the end, because instead of spending $75, they're spending $15. But they may perceive that your product is so low priced that it's not as good. But they may also realize very quickly that your product is not available anywhere anymore, because the intermediaries do not want to support you, because you undercut them so much that there's no more space between $75 and $15 for them to exist. You just essentially erased the logistics and intermediaries and distribution network that you may have had. So therefore, how much do you sell it for? Well, some companies have different policy. Instead of selling it $75, they sell it $80. So just a little bit more than what people would get it from online or retail store. But they would sell it, they would buy it for a little bit more directly from the company. Some people do that. Some people don't mind spending more because they feel that they're getting the product straight from the company. So that must be a more legitimate, more real product, maybe more limited or something like this. They feel that they have a direct relationship and it's more special. But there's some company also that are going to try to sell it instead of 75, the price of the retailer, or 80, the big price that you could sell it from the owner, is they're going to sell it, $74.99. So people save, $5 and a cent. Or what they try to do is give the buyer a little deal, but not such a great deal that they won't buy from the other places. So you have to be very careful when you do this, because you will have changed the attitudes of the consumers towards your brand and towards buying your product. They may not buy from you anymore. They may buy only from you anymore. So you want to be, whatever change of price you're doing, you want to make sure that you know the impact it's going to have. You also don't want to upset your distribution network by undercutting their prices to the point that they never want to work with you again. And that happens a lot. It's very common. And one of the most common company in America that everybody knows that oftentimes get brands in that situation where they are not doing too good again with the intermediaries is Costco. Costco is a company that is very good from the point of view of the consumer, at least for the short term, but not so much for the long term. And it's a company that's sort of not good for the distribution network in general, and not very good for the brand, if you pay attention. Because what happens is Costco is one of the cheapest places where you can buy things that are pretty good, because they have one of the cheapest margin. So how come they have such a one of the cheapest margin? Is because they buy in large volume. In fact, if you were, I'm just making a guess, who is the largest seller of peanut in America? You probably find that it's Costco. Who is the largest seller of toothpaste in America? You probably find it's Costco. So Costco is top 5 in pretty much every category that they sell, because they buy in humongous amounts of volume, and at the same time they sell at a very low margin, like 16% or something like this. Not many stores sell like 16%, and their prices are low because they buy large volume with a small percentage, and therefore that allows the consumer to buy for a much lower price. But by doing this, what happens is it reduces the places where the product is available for sale, and it increasing the dependency of the manufacturer to keep working with large buyers, because eventually the large buyers becomes a big client, and then you stay nice to big clients. But eventually these big clients starts controlling the price that they buy, and that becomes somewhat of a long-term liability, because eventually your relationship with these kinds of distributors is solely based on price. They sell you because you keep your prices. No, that's not true for every product that are sold by these discount private club massive intermediaries, retailers and wholesalers, because they they buy in large volume, they sell in large volume. Normally, they sell to businesses, not so much consumers, but they sell a lot to consumers. And therefore, you just have to know about these concepts that I'm explaining now. And the best way to know about them is to experience them, once you experience them and you make the wrong decisions, then you quickly understand that this is very tricky. And so distribution is very tricky. Distribution is something that best understood by people who have the most experience. Pricing, you mostly need to understand the challenge and the roles and your costs and the method that you want to use. So young, old, experienced, inexperienced, that's okay. Product, obviously, it's understanding, the concept about what problem are we solving. That's really the most important thing. But when it comes to distribution, you can read as many books as possible, but that's not going to help you. The best way to learn about distribution is by doing it. And so that's why if you go into distribution, you see a lot of older people involved. If you go in technology, you see a lot of younger people involved. And I would say there's a big difference between these two in terms of age. Do you have any questions? I'm looking at the chat just to see if anyone is giving me any questions. Yeah, exactly. So you use pricing in order for people to buy more or to buy something they didn't plan to buy. So when you sell to the customers directly, it's called direct channel of distribution. When you sell to the customers not directly, it's called indirect channel of distribution. The traditional channel of distribution are the producer. After the producer, the wholesaler. So it's the business that's going to be buying in large volume. Like I was saying, a container, 7,000 bottles, that's a wholesaler, not a retailer. And then you have what are called brokers. And so that's an interesting piece because we are working essentially for a broker right now. So it's not often that I can explain to students that a broker is exactly what our client is. So maybe it's the first time ever in my career that I can tell students what's a broker. A broker is AF. NBS is a broker. So what they do is they offer a service as an intermediary in between the manufacturer and the retailers, in between the wholesaler and the retailers. So they could be a manufacturer, a wholesaler, then NBS, and then the retailer, or they could be the producer, NBS, and the wholesaler. Anyway, they are a broker and they are in between, somewhere there, between the producer and the retailer. They do not buy the product, so they have no possession of the product. They are just passing the product to the next customer that will buy the product. So the brokers don't work between businesses and customers. So that's why if NBS was to create a platform in order to sell flowers directly to consumer, it would be a B2C, and therefore they would not be a broker, but they would become a platform as a retail store. So NBS selling flowers to customers, that's a platform. It's a retail platform, online retail platform. So they're not brokers anymore. Selling flowers from a producer to Ralph's or Costco or Home Depot, that's a broker. They have no ownership. They have no storage. They don't touch the product. They just facilitate the transaction by connecting people. So that's why you have real estate brokers. They don't own the house. They just know the owner and they are looking for buyers and they just make the connections. Brokers do a really good job. It's a job that is part of the distribution network. It's a necessary intermediary in many instances because they are specialized. It is very difficult to have the knowledge of the production and the knowledge of the distribution. Oftentimes, what you do is you have the knowledge in order to manage the people who are the specialists, but you're not a specialist producer and a specialist distributor. That's for the most part. There are some companies that are specialists in both cases. I mean, we're talking Apple, for example, they're producing and they also selling the product through their stores and sometimes through other stores, but they also own some stores. So they have multiple channels of distribution, and they may be using also brokers because they may be doing brokerage services when they're selling to businesses. For example, selling to the university, it's possible that Apple has used a broker, which is sort of a representative sales agent, speaking to CSUN from the supply and purchase of CSUN that are looking for iPads or some kind of a device like this. And this broker would have made a great presentation with a great service and after sales service and so forth. And then the university are buying some Apple when in fact they were not planning to buy any of the Apple product, but they were seduced by the broker making the presentation. And then the broker gets some commission from Apple for having made the connection like this. So brokers are very important. Brokers are like a lubricant in the system of distribution. Now, I'm going to talk about, I haven't not talked about strategy so much, but the strategy of distribution are, the first two that I mentioned are direct versus indirect. So these are strategic decisions. So therefore you can call them strategies, direct versus indirect distribution. Then the next strategy that I want to talk to is push and pull. Push and pull are two different strategies, which are, one is the opposite of the other. So let's start with pull. So the pull strategy is when you're creating incentive to get the consumers to want to buy the product. So you motivate the consumers for the consumers to want to buy the product. So the consumers are mostly motivated by communication. So you communicate to the consumers by advertising to them, by using social media. Eventually you use influencers, and the influencers are becoming sort of the norm. Everyone is using influencers. And then these influencers are creating sort of a demand. And the campaign of communication is creating these demands. And eventually the people, they want this product. So they heard about the product. They've been convinced about the product. They've been bombarded of multiple information from different sources in order to create this sort of this need, this perception of need. And eventually people look for the product, and then they find it on Amazon, they find it on eBay, they find it in their local store, they find it in a catalog, they find it in some neighbors, friends, someone is using the product. And at that time they go, oh, I want this product because I heard about it and I see people using it. It seems popular. So that's pull. You're pulling the product for the people to want to buy the product. Now, push is another strategy that is the opposite, because this time your target of this communication for the sake of engaging people in the distribution network is not directed towards the consumer first, but it's actually directed towards the store, the structure which will be distributing the product. So a push strategy consists in motivating the wholesaler, the retailer, the online Amazon website, whatever, to want to promote your product and carry your product and put your product forward as more exciting. And so the pull in some way is as a better control, or you have a better evaluation of your pull in general than your push. So example, if you put an ad in the Super Bowl on TV, you hope that this is going to sell, but you don't know if it's going to sell one product or a million products. You're just making a guess, and it's a guess estimation. And because the Super Bowl advertising has existed for a long time, there's a lot of money involved, the guess estimation is going to be rather accurate. But otherwise, if you put an ad on a bus stop, on a billboard on the side of the freeway, in a magazine, in social media, you're not 100% sure. It's very chancy. So versus that's the pull, incentivizing the consumer to want to look for the product. With the push, I'm saying you have more control, because with the push, you are saying, I have a product right now that is worth $10. If you take a product, I give it to you for $10. But if you take 100 products, I give it to you for $9. If you take more than 500 products, I give it to you for $8.50. And if you take more than 2,000 products, I give it to you for $8. If they only take one, you didn't lose anything. If they took 600, you did reduce the price, but you made some money because they bought 600, and you knew how much you were going to make in 600 in order to create these incentives of reducing the price to $8. So pull costs you money, but it only costs you money for selling the product, versus, sorry, push only costs you money and costs you money for selling the product. So, for example, a coupon, if they buy the product and they use the coupon give them $1 off. Well, you give the coupon, nobody using it, you're not losing anything, but you're not selling any product. Now, someone said, oh, but I've had to give $10,000 back because I got 10,000 coupons being used. Yes, but it's 10,000 multiplied by $9. So now you made this money. So that's the beauty to understand between push and pull. Is push is more controlled, is you give something, but for something in return. Pull is you just spend a lot of money, but you don't know how much this money is going to translate into a return. However, there is a big pro for the pull. The big pro for the pull is that it's if you do have a lot of money, you're much better off doing pull. The bigger your budget, the more you do pull, because pull generates a faster return. So when it works, and if it works, it's quickly that you can tell. I mean, you advertise in the Super Bowl, your sales are not going to be a year after. Your sales are going to be the next day. You're going to see it the next day. Something is going to change during the Super Bowl the next day. It's very immediate. So the more you advertise, the more you communicate, the more you're doing pull, the more you're going to see a big change, and a fast big change, versus with the push, because you're incentivizing the people selling the product and not so much the consumers. Then you are, there's a delay. It's a slower process, but you don't lose as much money. So if you're a small business, you're more likely to do push. If you're a very large business, you're more likely to do pull. However, in most cases, if you're a large business, you're doing push and pull. So large businesses also, they do both. Because when you're doing push strategy, not only you're giving incentives to the distribution network, so the retail store, buy more, I'll give you a discount. But you also, they are also giving an incentive, a discount to the people who are buying. So the people are buying, so you can imagine going to a store and you have decided to buy a Kit Kat chocolate. You say, I want chocolate. I don't want anything else but Kit Kat. So why do you want Kit Kat? You want Kit Kat because it belongs to Nestle. Nestle is one of the biggest food company in the world, and therefore they are using a lot of pull. Consumers know about Nestle, consumer knows about Kit Kat. They go to the store, they look specifically for this one. It's to the point even that when they are in the store, they are overwhelmed by all the choices, but they're not overwhelmed by all the choices because they're only there to get the Kit Kat. But at that time, a smaller company, a family-owned local chocolate may be selling in that store. And what they did, they can't afford the pull. They can't be in every football, baseball, soccer match, and so forth. So that small family brand, what they did is a push. So they give an incentives at the point of purchase. So next to that chocolate, you know, the chocolate is called Smith's chocolate. Next to the Smith's, there's a little card and it says, you know, 2 for the price of 1. And this person was just about to buy the Kit Kats, but their eyes was caught by the fact that this is 2 for the price of 1. And they're looking, and therefore it's going to be, you know, 2 for $4 versus the Kit Kat, it's going to be $4.50. And so at that time, they're thinking, ooh, should I get more for less? Or should I get exactly the brand that I came here to get? And there it all depends. There would be different other reasons why they would pick one another, but that would create a dilemma. And it's that dilemma that is explained by the push and by the pull. Do you have any questions? So if you have the choices, you should do both. In fact, most businesses do both because most businesses give discounts on the products when they sell in volumes to the intermediaries. That's very common. And now most businesses have some social media more or less advanced, which allow them to directly campaign directly to the consumers. So what has social media has changed? Well, social media has changed the fact that now you are able to do some pull distribution or promotion campaign when before it was very expensive. Before using cable TV, it's too expensive. Now it's much more affordable. A billboard, too expensive. Now it's much more affordable. All of this because of social media, and therefore businesses have allocated more money for social media. But social media is not free, but it's still affordable for everyone to be able to do it. Affordable at a small scale, at a large scale, it becomes very expensive. But that's one of the big benefits of social media, is making it more democratic in the sense that every business is now able to do more pull than before. Now, looking at 3 other strategies of this distribution, I'm looking at the choice of distributing everywhere. So you're selling, I don't know, a big pen. So you're selling this big pen, and in that situation, you're going to say, where should I sell this? Is this anything special? Well, no, it's not special. It's just a disposable pen that has multiple colors and so forth. So I need to sell it everywhere. And that everywhere will means it's going to be called a strategy of intensive distribution. Now you're thinking, maybe I want to make another model that is more selective. And it's going to be a selective distribution strategy, which means it's not everywhere, but it's places where there are specific retailers or stores, online stores, where there's knowledge, more something more special about the product. So then you'll have to make it a little bit more special. So in that situation, maybe there's going to be like a rubber grip on it to help you. Maybe the pen is going to have more ink, something like this, slightly more expensive. Maybe this will be an accessory on it also that helps you to do something that's important or whatever. There's something on this product that makes it better and becomes selective distribution. So if you're buying, you know, chewing gum, that's intensive distribution versus if you're buying a Ford car or a Toyota, this will be selective distribution. That's the 2 strategy. And there's a third one, which is called exclusive distribution. So in that situation, what you think of is to have a product which is more unique and it sells to a very niche target, limited group of customers. And so you cannot sell it everywhere. And you know the people are going to prefer to buy this product from a specific location, from a specific store. They will want to talk to people that have more knowledge. They have some certification or they have some higher level of training in order to buy this product. So in that stage, selective exclusive distribution means it's in very contracted area. So normally you define an area, and then in this area, you define the number of customers. And based on the number of customers in this area and the type of customers in this area, you decide that you can have only one distributor, or maybe because it's large and there's lots of customers, and maybe there's differences between these customers, even though it's a small area, then you have exclusive distribution, where you would have a contract of exclusivity with that store to sell in that territory. And in that territory, nobody else could be selling your product but the one that you gave the exclusivity. So three, again, distribution strategy: intensive, selective, and exclusive distribution strategies. Now, when you talk about distribution, you have to understand the concept of the bargaining power between all the different people that are doing the distribution. So the bargaining power is, who has more bargaining power? Is it the producer, the manufacturer, or is it the distributor? And that's always a very interesting question, because you have to think about who is more important. Well, I mean, if there's no producer, there's nothing to sell. True. But at the end, do people buy products because they think of a producer, or do they buy it because it's been made available to them in the most convenient way? Are people going towards convenience? And the reality is there are some products that they would want to buy just a specific brand. So they only want to buy from running shoes from Nike or from Adidas and Reebok and so forth. And so that these are the only brand that they would want to buy. They don't want to buy a no branded shoe in order to exercise, for example. This is true. So the bargaining power is very much in the hand of the producer. But on the other hand, is you can see also distributors having power. You may think of the Shoe Locker or the Dick's Sporting Goods, or those stores that make a decision of which brand do they carry and which brand they don't carry. And there may be some exclusivity from those brands in those stores being able to carry versus these stores not being able to carry. So it's very important to understand this role of exclusivity to see the importance of, therefore, the producer brand versus the distributor brand. Now, the distributor, for the most part, has more bargaining power if you look at all the brands that are being sold. But the brands that are the most famous, the brand that have the highest brand equity, have usually more power than the distributor. People seek those brands, you know, maybe they are avid runners, and avid runners won't even run with a pair of Nike. They look just for a specific brand, and it has to be, I don't know, Asics. And so they're looking for the Asics and a specific model, all this. So they're very specific. And in that situation, whoever sells it, it doesn't matter. As long as they get that brand, who cares? And so that's why distribution now is complex, because you can also see that there's an element of pricing where people don't care about the brand, they don't care of the distributor, they just care of the price. And then you could see people care about the brand, and then they care about the pricing, and they don't care of the distributors. That's why distributors are constantly trying to have more product that they sell and to make it in more locations and more accessibility and easier for the distribution and the timing and how quickly they can submit. So manufacturers have the power of their quality, their reputation, and the number of customers that they have, people that follow them. But at the same time, they are important for the distributors, because distributors don't make the same percentage of profits depending what brand do they sell. And in general, distributors make less profit percentage from bigger brands. So the bigger the brand, so if they sell Coca-Cola, the less profit they make per product, but maybe the bigger the profit total they make. So selling Dr. Pepper is a higher profit, means they make 20% per bottle, versus Coca-Cola, they make 10% per bottle. But yet Coca-Cola, they make 3 times more sales. So the profit altogether of Coca-Cola is greater than RC Cola. But at the same time, they still want to sell some RC Cola because that's a bigger generator of profit per item. The distributor main strength is the fact that they are known for a location, being a .com location or being a physical location. They are in the right place where people go with most traffic or something like this. They also have a very important element, which is their sales volume. And when you deal with the distributor, you're not dealing with the customers. You know, customers, they buy one pair of shoes versus Dick's Sporting Goods, they buy tens of thousands of pair of shoes. So that's a big bargaining power that they have, that the consumer don't have, and that the brand owners, producer also know that the distributor has. So that's very important to take into consideration, and therefore not only they buy in large quantities, but they are an important element of the profit that producers are making. And distributors have also their own loyalty, brand loyalty, group of fans. You know, there's people that like to buy from Vons versus people that like to buy from Ralph's versus people that like to buy from Kroger and versus people that like to buy from Albertsons. Maybe they have some kind of fidelity, frequency purchase with discounts. The more they buy, the more they save. That may be a reason, but there may be other things, which is that they have an affinity because they are comfortable, because they know someone, because they've been using them for a long time, and therefore there's maybe a trust, a brand trust that has an impact on how much they're buying. So at the end, it's important to understand all of this, because at the end, you oftentimes negotiate with a producer if you are an intermediary distributor, or if you are a producer, you know what's the power of the distributors and what you will be negotiating with. And for the most part, I'm telling you, the distributors have the upper end because they are like necessary, and they're very much selecting who do they carry. So that is why it's so important for a brand to have some independence and communicate as much as possible in order to build this relationship, this pool relationship directly with the customers as much as possible, for the customer to become the voice to convince, you know, because if you do a pecking order, the pecking order is the customer is the boss, the second boss is the distributor, and then the third boss is the producer. So the producer is always at the bottom, and therefore they have to have this affinity and specific relationship as much as possible with the consumers, for the consumers to impose some respect or some demand to the distributor, for the distributor to want to carry the brand. So that's a very, very important relationship. It's like a circle, or some arrows, where you have three entities, and where you see it's like the chicken and the egg. Where does it start? Well, the producer probably starts by creating this reputation. The fan learn about the reputation. Eventually, the distributor looks from the corner of their eyes if they're going to take that brand. That brand is brand new. The consumer don't know about it. I won't take a chance. Oh, but they have a lot of high margin because they give me such a low price. Therefore, I carry the brand that nobody wants or knows because of the discount. And then the consumer hear information directly from the pool of the brand, social media of the brand, some influencers, then they go, oh, I think I've seen it at the store or on the internet. Then they go look at it. At that same time, there's a push for the product. And so eventually it's this system that is almost like a pressure system, where you need to get the pressure upper in order for your product to become more and more desirable. So that's why understanding this, reading books about this, is sort of helping you, even me as an instructor explaining you this. It's good, but the best way to really understand it is to experience it. And so that's the one thing that I see a big difference between my students that are in their 20s and the students that are in the 50s, because in the 50s, that's what they've learned for the past 25 years. Everything else was easy, and that was the hardest part. So when you distribute, you have to think about the system of alliances, partnership between the different members. So, I mentioned that when that was the very beginning of talking about distribution and the intermediaries, it's very important to be honest and realize that when you're a producer, you're very good at producing and probably not as good as distributing. However, there's nothing that says that you cannot become good at distributing by having some kind of partnership with people that are better. So how does it work? Well, maybe you become a producer, which eventually will develop some skills and eventually become yourself your own distributor by having sales from your online websites, or maybe creating some other websites that sells your products and your competitors' products. And that way you have one foot in the distribution network. Maybe you don't want to go and be a distributor directly to the consumer, but what you do is you create a wholesaler, so an intermediary that actually buys a lot of products, including your competitors, and eventually you become the wholesaler. So you become, you remember all the levels. So you have producers, wholesalers, retailers, and you may be the producer that becomes a wholesaler. So you buy in large quantities, and then you become the retailers and trying to get all of these. The problem with that is there are different jobs. It takes a long time, a lot of money, a lot of cash flow, and then you may take the risks of not being good at these and having these go bankrupt and then make your production company go bankrupt with it. You could do some partnerships, so partnership with contracts, some exclusivity contracts with some of those wholesalers and distributors in order to protect yourself. Maybe you could invest, so you have a partnership, a part ownership in some of those intermediaries. But it can go the other way as well. It could be a distributor that wants to create your own, what's called private label. So private labels are distributor brands, which are not produced by the distributor. They're very rarely produced by distributors. So it's like a Vons pepper and Vons salt and Vons water and Vons soap and Vons honey. You don't make honey. The last thing you want to do is start making honey. So you have someone else who makes honey, and then you start producing the honey under your distributor brand. Why would you do this? Because you can buy large volumes, you can control the prices, and you already have fans that buy your brand and wants to, that knows your brand and trust your brand and follow your brand, and then they're going to trust that the product that you sell under your brand are as good as everything else. So you create this relationship with them. And by doing this, is you're also developing partnership between you being a retailer and having your private brand shared with the producer, but at the same time, you can have some kind of licensing or you just buy it from them, and you get this benefit from this relationship. So there's multiple relationships that you can have from producer to the retailer and wholesaler, but the retailer also doing this with the wholesalers, becoming a wholesaler. And so it's very important to understand that all kinds of things can happen. I'm sorry, I was not able to project my my slides, but if you went online, you had access on those slides and you could see that they were very closely related. I can also provide this exact slide after the class as well. That way you can go back to the video and look at it in order to study for the quiz. But otherwise, I wish you a good day and I will see you next week in class. If you have any questions, I'll stay around for a few minutes. Let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Professor?
Yes.
Do you think you could just quickly kind of like give me feedback on like my opportunity section, just like a very quick rundown?
Yeah. I think there's another person that wanted to talk to me as well.
Or they can go
So-
first.
Yeah, let's see if I can. So just hang in there just a few minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Hi, Professor. It was me. He can go though.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. So Edwin,
Yes, do I share my screen?
yeah, just to open. Oh, I was wondering if we could go in a.
Oh yeah, I can.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can go in the breakout room.
Yes, so I can join Edwin and then I'll come to see you back, Melanie. Is that okay? Hello. Alors. One. Yeah, Edwin, I don't know if you hear me, but couldn't get to join you, so go ahead.
Okay, so
Okay, so,
oh, it says I can't
yeah,
screen share.
because it's.
Do I join the breakout room that you had, or
No. So don't worry, we'll do it here because.
okay? Because you invited me to get out of that or something to join the main session.
Yeah, so there's no more break room anyway.
Okay, it's fine.